With a surge in the daily COVID-19 numbers in the country, now officially in the fourth wave, the discovery of the new COVID-19 variant Omicron has sparked fears that another lockdown is looming. Businessman Vusi Thembekwayo joins us this evening to talk about the impact of lockdowns and their devastating impact on the economy. Thank you so much for your time, Vusi. We do appreciate it. I think let's just start off with the fact that there are fears looming that there could possibly be another lockdown because of Omicron. How devastating will this be for our economy? Sorry, Vusi, if you could just unmute yourself, please.
That's so embarrassing at the end of 2021.
It's okay, don't worry.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Hi, Heidi. So good to see you again, and thanks for having me on the show. So your question was how devastating would it be? I don't think it's even quantifiable for people to understand just how bad it would be. I was at the airport on the day when a lot of the flight cancellations were happening. A lot of tourists were flying out of South Africa. A lot of South Africans themselves were trying to get on planes out really on a panic so that they could make their December destinations. I know as a consequence of this, in particular tourism. So between last year and this year, tourism has just about halved in terms of its contribution to GDP. So to say it would be dire is actually an understatement. It would be catastrophic to local business, in particular small businesses, which, by the way, have not only borne the worst brunt of this, but have also enjoyed the least support from our government. It would be so bad that it's hard to put it in words.
What would you say is your take on lockdowns? Do you think that government got it right in terms of trying to find the right balance when it comes to lives versus livelihoods because of how devastating COVID-19 has been?
I've been very, very honest about this. I've been very transparent about it, and I've been very upfront about it. The answer to that question is no. There is a video of mine at a point in time that went viral when I spoke about these lockdowns over 18 months ago already. And frankly, not much has changed. Look, let's just take a step back here. The question you could ask yourself is, what's the science behind lockdowns? My understanding, certainly at the beginning of the lockdowns, was that you put in place a lockdown to enable the state to create the machinery and the capacity within government so that it is able to deal with the issues that then come when a wave is in effect, right? So in other words, make sure you've got enough healthcare facilities, enough doctors, enough capacity, enough vaccinations, whatever the case might be. It's really to allow the state to build up the buffer to be able to take on it. Why are we still doing lockdowns 18 months after the fact? What would be our fourth wave? You're trying to tell me 3 waves later, we still don't know how to deal with a wave breakout, that we would need lockdowns to break out. It's just not palatable in my mind. Over the past 6 months, I've been traveling all over the world. I've been in many parts of the world who have had infection rates that are much, much higher than South Africa. I'm talking 10 times higher than South Africa, that are not at lockdown, not considering lockdown, not talking about lockdown, because they know that lockdowns don't work. They know that curfews don't work. They're aware of this, right? So I think there is the people who are against lockdown purely because they don't like the idea of the government telling them what to do. I'm not one of those people. I'm just like, what's the science behind this thing and what does the data tell us? Now, there are those who will say, but we've seen a decline in infection rates when a lockdown is in effect. But that's more a function of social behavior. It's not a consequence of the lockdown or the effectiveness of the lockdown in dealing with those issues. So no, we know that they don't work. And I'm not one of these people who's, purist standing outside of the state saying, I don't want to participate. I think the government needs to do what it needs to do to protect its citizens. But whatever it does has to be backed by science. And I'm afraid on this, I just don't see how the science supports a lockdown on the fourth wave, 18 months after, 2 years later, and that would somehow, change the consequence of the impact of what is going to come.
Sure. Just speak to us about your take on our unemployment rates. I mean, it's the highest it's ever been. We know that COVID-19 has hit some of the poorest citizens. We know that, especially in Gauteng, the majority of people lost their jobs, possibly linked to the impact that lockdown has had. How do you think government should try and address this? Because it's been a problem year after year that the youngest people don't have jobs. Youth unemployment is at an all-time high.
Oh, Heidi, it breaks my heart, really. I have to be honest with you, Heidi. I'm actually just sick and tired of us talking about this. It's 2021, December 5th. These people know, they know what the problem is. They know what they need to do. If I hear one more economist talk about structural reform, I'm going to shoot someone. If I hear one more banker talk about de-risking the banking environment, I'm going to shoot someone. If I hear one more person working for a state funding agency talk about how we need to unlock funding for entrepreneurs to build businesses, we know. We've known for the past decade. We know. South Africa doesn't have a do you know what the problem is issue. South Africa has a are you willing to do what it takes to fix the problem issue. Frankly, Heidi, I think that our priorities are wrong. I think we're all too obsessed about who runs what metro, who voted for whom, who's trending, and who attacked whom. I think our politicians are getting away with being completely inept and completely ineffective. I think that we're not holding in particular big business and in part banks to the fire. They created, take your mind back, you were there because you remember it, a long-term bank guarantee scheme, 200 billion rand to fund small businesses. The last I checked, I think they deployed 16 billion, maybe 20 billion. I want to know which CEO of which bank, which head of risk of which bank was hauled by Parliament and called into a portfolio committee, which CEO was suspended for not deploying capital when the country had the levels of unemployment that make it, frankly, close on a failed state. We know. You know you have to build small businesses. You know you have to rebuild the economy. You know you've got to rebuild infrastructure. You know you've got to provide electricity so stop load shedding. You know. So they know what the problem is. I'm beyond talking about this because frankly, let's be honest about it, we're kind of just talking into the ether and these things don't get done.
I wish I had more time with you, but unfortunately we've run out of time. Thank you so much for your insights. I would have loved to know if you would actually go and work for government because clearly you have the answers and I don't want you shooting anybody. That was Business and Vusi Thembekwayo. Thank you so much for your time.